Marcus Chun stood at attention in the grand hall of Concordia Prime Station, trying not to feel out of place. Around him, aliens of every shape and color moved through the diplomatic reception. Some had scales that shimmered like oil on water. Others floated in containment fields, their bodies made of living gas. A few walked on 6 legs, their multiple eyes tracking everything at once. Marcus was just human. Brown skin, dark hair cut military short, and a dress uniform that felt too tight around his shoulders. He had been a soldier for 15 years, fighting in the border wars and the Titan Rebellion. Now he was a security officer, assigned to protect someone who did not want his protection. Princess Zilara of the Aetherian Empire stood across the room, surrounded by admirers and diplomats. She was tall, nearly 7 feet, with skin that looked like it was carved from blue crystal. Light seemed to move inside her, creating patterns that shifted with her mood. Her people were ancient and powerful. They had built cities among the stars when humans still lived in caves. She had not looked at Marcus once since he arrived. "Captain Chun." The voice came from his earpiece. It was Commander Rathis, head of station security. Rathis was a Volnari, a species that looked like walking mantises with too many joints. "Remember, this is a ceremonial posting. The princess has her own guards. Your job is to smile and represent humanity well." "Understood, sir," Marcus replied quietly, but he was not smiling. His eyes moved constantly, scanning the crowd, the exits, the servers carrying trays of exotic drinks. Something felt wrong. He could not explain it, but his instincts were screaming at him. The security stations were positioned incorrectly. They left blind spots near the eastern entrance. The servers were changing shifts at irregular intervals. And there were too many guests crowded near the princess, making it impossible to maintain a clear line of sight. Marcus had mentioned these concerns during the pre-event briefing. The alien security officers had dismissed him politely but firmly. Humans were new to the Galactic Consortium. They did not understand how things worked. Everything was under control. Marcus hoped they were right. Princess Zilara moved through the crowd with practiced grace. She spoke 5 languages fluently and could discuss quantum mechanics as easily as poetry. She was here to finalize a peace treaty with the Krinoth Dominion, ending a war that had lasted 300 years. If successful, it would reshape the entire galactic political landscape. If she died, the war would continue for another 1,000 years. Marcus edged closer, ignoring the annoyed looks from her primary guards. They were Aetherians like her, wearing armor that looked like diamond and carried weapons that could disintegrate matter at the molecular level. They thought a human guard was an insult to their princess. The evening continued. Speeches were made. Toasts were offered in languages that hurt Marcus's ears to hear. Zilara played her role perfectly, the gracious future empress, kind but distant, powerful but approachable. Then Marcus saw it. One of the servers, a Drellian with purple skin and 4 arms, moved wrong. Too purposeful. Too focused. Marcus watched as the server approached Zilara's group, carrying a tray of crystal glasses filled with glowing liquid. Marcus's hand went to his sidearm. "Chun, stand down." Rathis's voice crackled in his ear. "You're making people nervous." Marcus ignored him. He pushed through the crowd, drawing stares and angry hisses from aliens who did not appreciate being shoved by a human. The server was 3 meters from Zilara now. 2 meters. Marcus ran. The server's hand moved to his belt. Marcus saw the glint of metal, saw the device that was definitely not part of a server's uniform. He tackled the Drellian just as the alien's fingers touched the activation switch. They hit the floor hard. The tray went flying. Glasses shattered, spraying glowing liquid across the polished floor. Aliens screamed and scattered. Zilara's guards raised their weapons, pointing them at Marcus. "Bomb!" Marcus shouted. "He has a bomb!" He wrestled with the Drellian, who was stronger than he looked. 4 arms were better than 2 in a fight. But Marcus had trained in zero-gravity combat, in close-quarters battle, in every dirty trick the human military could teach. He got his knee on the alien's chest and ripped the device-free dot. It was small, no bigger than a coin, but Marcus recognized the design. Plasma charge. Enough to kill everyone in a 10-meter radius. Station security swarmed in, finally reacting. They pulled Marcus off the Drellian, who was shouting that this was all a misunderstanding, that the human had attacked him for no reason. Then someone screamed. One of the Etherian guards, scanning the device with his equipment, went very still. "It's armed," the guard said quietly. 3 more seconds, and we would all be dead. The room went silent. Marcus stood up slowly, breathing hard. His uniform was torn and stained. His knuckles were bleeding. He looked across the chaos and finally met Princess Xylara's eyes. She was staring at him. For the first time, really looking at him. Her crystalline features were impossible to read, but the light patterns under her skin were moving faster than before. "You saved my life," she said. Her voice was like music played on glass instruments. "Just doing my job, Your Highness," Marcus replied. "My guard said there was no threat. My security team said you were being paranoid. They said humans see danger where there is none because you are a violent species." Marcus said nothing. What could he say? Humans were violent. Everyone in the galaxy knew it. It was why most species did not trust them. "Perhaps," Xylara continued, walking toward him, "we need more paranoia and less confidence." She stopped in front of him. Up close, she was even more impressive. Alien and beautiful and completely beyond his world. "What is your name, Captain?" "Marcus Chun, Your Highness, Marcus Chun." She said it carefully, like she was tasting the words. "You will stay close to me from now on. I want you as part of my personal security detail. Your Highness, I'm sure your own guards. My own guards failed." Her voice was sharp now, cutting. "You did not. That is all I need to know." Commander Rathis appeared, his mantis face twitching with what might have been embarrassment or anger. "Princess, I apologize for the disturbance. We will investigate how this assassin infiltrated." "There will be more," Xylara interrupted, still looking at Marcus. This was too sophisticated, too well planned to be an isolated incident. "Someone wants me dead very badly." "Then we should cancel the summit," Rathis suggested. "Return you to your homeworld where you'll be safe." "No." Xylara's skin flashed with red light, a sign of anger in her species. "I will not hide. I will not let terrorists win. The peace talks will continue." She turned to Marcus. "Can you protect me, Captain Chun?" Marcus thought about his training. Thought about all the ways an assassin could strike. Thought about how he was just one human against enemies he could not see, in a station filled with thousands of aliens, any of whom might be a threat. He met her eyes. "Yes, Your Highness. I can." It was probably a lie. But it was the lie she needed to hear. And somewhere deep in his gut, Marcus meant it. He would protect this alien princess or die trying. He just did not know yet that he would do both. The attack came 3 days later, during the transfer to the diplomatic vessel that would take them to the summit. Marcus had barely slept since the reception. He walked beside Princess Xylara everywhere she went, studying faces, checking routes, questioning anyone who came too close. Her Etherian guards tolerated him now, though they still looked at him like he was a trained animal performing tricks. They were moving through a connecting corridor between Concordia Prime and the docking bay where the princess's ship waited. The corridor was transparent, offering a view of space and the massive station around them. Beautiful and deadly. Marcus saw the maintenance, Pod 2 late thought it was supposed to be running diagnostics on the station's exterior. Instead, it fired magnetic grapples that punched through the corridor wall. The transparent material cracked like ice. Air began screaming out into space. Alarms blared. Emergency bulkheads started to close, but they were slow, too slow. And through the breach came 3 figures in combat armor, weapons raised. Marcus did not think. He grabbed Zilara and threw her behind a structural support column just as plasma bolts cut through the air where she had been standing. Her guards returned fire, their diamond armor glowing as they activated shield systems. "Get her to safety," Marcus shouted, pulling his sidearm. It was a human weapon, crude compared to alien technology, but it fired solid bullets that did not need fancy electronics. Simple, reliable. One of the attackers focused on Marcus. Bad choice. Marcus had fought in the vacuum of Titan. He knew how to move in low-pressure environments, how to use the escaping air as cover. He rolled, fired 3 shots, and watched the attacker's faceplate crack. But there were 3 of them and only 6 guards. The math was bad and getting worse. "They're hurting us," Marcus realized aloud. "They want us to go down Corridor C. Then we go down Corridor B," Zilara said beside him. She had not left. Despite his order, despite the danger, she was crouched next to him, watching the fight with those unreadable crystal eyes. "Your Highness, you need to—" "I am not a decoration, Captain Chun. I have tactical training. What do you suggest?" Marcus blinked, surprised. Then he focused. They came from outside. That means they have a ship nearby, probably cloaked. If we go where they want us to, we'll find more attackers waiting. Agreed. We need to reach the hangar before they cut us off. Can you run in that dress? Zylara's skin flashed with what might have been amusement. The formal gown she wore split along hidden seams, becoming practical combat clothing. "I am Aetherian, Captain. We invented adaptive materials." Marcus almost smiled. "Stay behind me." They moved fast. 2 of Zylara's guards created a defensive line, buying time with their lives. Marcus heard them fall and felt sick, but he could not stop. He led Zilara through maintenance passages that the attackers would not expect. Routes he had memorized during his paranoid preparations. They were almost to the hangar when the 4th attacker appeared. This one was different. Bigger, wearing powered armor that made the corridor feel small. The armor had no faction markings, no identification. Professional assassin gear. The assassin raised a weapon that looked like it could punch through a tank. Marcus pushed Zilara back and raised his pathetic sidearm. He knew he was about to die. The math was simple. Bullets versus plasma cannon equaled dead human. But Marcus had one advantage. Humans were crazy. He charged. The assassin was not expecting it. Nobody expected prey to attack. Marcus got inside the cannon's firing arc, too close for the big weapon to track. He jammed his gun against the armor's joint seal and emptied the magazine. The armor sparked. Something important broke. The assassin stumbled, and Marcus grabbed the maintenance tool from the wall, a heavy wrench designed for repairing hull plating, and brought it down on the assassin's helmet with all his strength. Once, twice, 3 times. The helmet cracked. The assassin fell. Marcus stood over the body, breathing hard, his hands shaking from adrenaline. He had killed before, but never like this. Never this close, this brutal. Marcus. It was the first time Zilara had used his name without his rank. He turned. She was looking at him differently now. Not with fear, but with something else. Recognition, maybe. "We need to keep moving," he said. They reached the hangar. Zylara's ship was still there, her remaining guards holding the perimeter. They launched immediately, escaping into the darkness between stars. In the ship's medical bay. Marcus sat while a medical drone repaired his cracked ribs and the dozen other injuries he had not noticed during the fight. Zilara stood nearby, watching. "You could have run," she said. "When the fourth assassin appeared, you could have left me and saved yourself. Why didn't you?" Marcus considered lying, giving her some noble speech about duty and honor. But he was too tired for lies. "I don't know," he admitted. "Bad habit, I guess. Humans are stupid like that. Stupid." Zilara repeated the word like it was foreign. "You call self-sacrifice stupid? Most species would. Most species are wrong." She moved closer, her crystalline features reflecting the medical bay's soft lights. "My people eliminated emotions 3,000 years ago. We decided they were inefficient, that logic and reason were superior. We became powerful because of this choice." "Sounds lonely," Marcus said. Zilara was quiet for a long moment. "Yes," she finally admitted. "Very lonely." She sat beside him, which protocol said she should never do. A princess did not sit with a guard. But here, in this moment, she did. "The attacks are coordinated," Marcus said, changing the subject because the moment was becoming too intense. "Professional. Expensive. Someone with resources wants you dead." "I know. And I know who." Marcus looked at her sharply. "The peace I'm trying to make will change everything," Zilara explained. "My empire and the Krinoth Dominion together would be the strongest force in the consortium. Other species fear this. They prefer us fighting each other." "Which species?" "I have suspicions, but no proof. Accusing members of the Council of Luminaries without evidence would start a war worse than the one we're trying to end. So what do? We investigate, carefully, and we trust no one." "You trust me," Marcus pointed out. "You barely know me." Zilara's skin flickered with colors he could not interpret. "You threw yourself at an armored assassin with a wrench, Marcus Chen. Either you are the bravest human I have ever met, or the stupidest. Either way, you are honest. And honesty is rare in politics." Over the following days, as they traveled to the summit location, Marcus and Zilara worked together. She showed him diplomatic files, intelligence reports, communication intercepts. He taught her how to think like a soldier, how to see patterns in chaos, how to trust instinct over data. They discovered the conspiracy went deeper than anyone imagined. 3 species on the council were working together, pooling resources to eliminate both Zilara and the human ambassador. They wanted to prevent the peace treaty and maintain the current power structure. Late one night, in Zilara's private quarters, she showed Marcus something forbidden. A data file from her people's restricted archives. "A prophecy," she explained, "written by our ancestors 10,000 years ago. Most of my people consider it mythology. But look at the date it predicts." Marcus read the alien script, translated by his implant. His blood went cold. The prophecy spoke of a convergence, a moment when the galaxy would face a choice between eternal war and unprecedented peace. It spoke of a sacrifice that would be required. And it spoke of the youngest blood being the key. "Youngest blood," Marcus said slowly. "That's humanity. We're the newest species in the consortium. Yes, this prophecy says someone human has to die. It says someone must sacrifice themselves to prevent catastrophe." The scholars interpreted youngest blood as age. But you might be right. Marcus stared at the text. Numbers and dates swam before his eyes. The astronomical alignment. The political crisis. Everything was lining up exactly as the ancient prophecy predicted. "Do you believe in fate?" Zilara asked softly. "I believe we make our own choices," Marcus replied. But his voice shook slightly. They sat in silence, watching the stars slide past the viewport. Somewhere ahead waited the summit. Waited the conspirators with their final plan. Waited destiny. Marcus looked at Zilara, really looked at her. alien and impossible, and somehow becoming the most important person in his life. "Whatever happens," he said, "I'll keep you safe." Xylara's hand, crystalline and strange, touched his arm gently. "I know." Neither of them mentioned the prophecy again that night, but both of them thought about it, and both of them wondered if some things were meant to be, no matter how much you fought against them. The Aetherian homeworld was called Luma, and it was the most beautiful thing Marcus had ever seen. Cities of crystal that sang in the wind, gardens where plants grew with geometric precision, and at the center of the capital, the Archive of Ancients, a library that held 10,000 years of history. Xylara had brought him here in secret. She was risking her reputation, her position, everything by bringing a human to the most sacred place of her people. But they needed answers, and the answers were here. No one has accessed these files in 3 centuries, Xylara explained as they moved through halls lined with data crystals that glowed like captured stars. My people stopped believing in prophecies when we eliminated emotion. We thought we had evolved beyond superstition. But you believe it now, Marcus said. I believe something is happening. Whether it's destiny or coincidence, we need to understand it. They found the complete prophecy in a crystal the size of Marcus's fist. When Xylara activated it, the text appeared in the air between them. Written in light. Marcus read it slowly, his translation implant working overtime. The language was ancient, poetic, and terrifying. When the 12 worlds align with the heart of the galaxy, when the youngest blood walks among the eldest stars, a choice will come. A single life given freely will either doom the cosmos to darkness eternal, or birth an age where former enemies become brothers. The sacrifice cannot be demanded. It cannot be forced. It must be offered with full knowledge and full heart. Only then will the chains of war be broken forever. Full knowledge and full heart, Marcus repeated. That means whoever dies has to choose it, has to know what they're doing and why. Xylara's crystalline skin was pulsing with dark colors. Sadness, Marcus had learned to recognize. The alignment happens in 6 days. At the exact moment the summit is scheduled to conclude. That's not a coincidence. No, someone knows about this prophecy. Someone is trying to manipulate it. They spent hours in the archive, searching for more information. They found technical data about the alignment, historical records of the last time it happened, and scholarly debates about what the prophecy meant. But nothing that told them how to stop what was coming. As they prepared to leave, an old Aetherian approached them. He was ancient even by his people's standards, his crystalline body clouded with age. He introduced himself as Keeper Voss, guardian of the archive. You seek to understand the convergence prophecy, Voss said. It was not a question. Yes, Xylara replied. Do you know something that isn't in the files? I know what my teacher told me, and what her teacher told her, passed down through generations of keepers. The prophecy is not about fate. It is about choice. It describes a moment when one individual's decision will echo across the entire galaxy. What kind of decision? Marcus asked. Voss turned his clouded eyes toward Marcus. The decision to put others before yourself. To die so that billions may live. My ancestors believed that such a choice, made freely and purely, would create a resonance in the fabric of reality itself. It would prove that consciousness, that life, has meaning beyond survival. That's insane, Marcus said. One death can't change the galaxy, can it? Voss smiled sadly. What is war but the accumulated belief that violence solves problems? What is peace but the accumulated belief that cooperation is possible? Beliefs shape reality, Captain Chun, and beliefs spread. One act of pure sacrifice could change what people believe is possible. Marcus felt cold. You're saying this is real, that the prophecy will actually happen. I am saying that 6 days from now someone will face a choice. and the entire future will hang on what they decide. They left Lumina that night. On the ship, Marcus could not sleep. He found Zilara on the observation deck, watching the stars. "You're thinking about the prophecy," she said without turning. "Can't stop thinking about it." Marcus stood beside her. "If it's real, if someone really has to die to stop a war, how do we know who? How do we know when?" "We don't." They stood in silence. Then Zilara spoke again, her voice soft. "Tell me about Earth, Marcus. Tell me about your home." So he did. He told her about oceans and mountains, about cities that glowed at night and forests that sang with birds. He told her about music and art, about how humans created beauty even in the middle of ugliness. He told her about his family, long dead in the border wars, and about how he had become a soldier to protect others from the same loss. "You humans," Zilara said when he finished, "you live such short lives compared to my people. Most species in the consortium live for centuries, but you pack more feeling, more living into your few decades than we do in 1,000 years. Is that good or bad? I don't know anymore. My people thought eliminating emotion made us superior. But listening to you talk about Earth, about your family, about love and loss and hope." Her skin flickered with colors Marcus had never seen before. "I wonder if we didn't lose something essential when we chose logic over feeling." Marcus reached out carefully and took her hand. Her skin was cool, crystalline, completely alien. But her fingers curled around his, and the gesture was somehow universal. "What happens after the summit?" he asked. "If we survive, I mean. If we stop the conspiracy and sign the peace treaty, what happens to us?" "I return to my empire. You return to your duties. We are from different worlds, Marcus. Different species. This cannot be more than what it is. What if I want it to be more?" Zilara pulled her hand away gently. "Wanting doesn't change reality. I am a princess. You are a soldier. We have responsibilities that matter more than what we want." "That's logic talking. Logic is all I have." "No," Marcus said firmly. "You have more than that now. I've seen it. The way you questioned your guards when they said everything was safe. The way you fought beside me instead of hiding. The way you're looking at me right now. That's not logic. That's feeling. That's being alive." Xylara's skin was a storm of colors now. Emotion she did not know how to name, fighting for dominance. "You scare me, Marcus-chan." "Good. You scare me too. But I'd rather be scared and feel something than be safe and feel nothing." She looked at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she leaned forward and pressed her forehead against his. It was an etherian gesture of deep trust and affection, something she would never do in public. Something that meant she was letting him see past all her defenses. "If the prophecy is true," she whispered, "if someone has to die—" "Don't," Marcus interrupted. "Don't think about that now. I have to. Because if it comes down to a choice, I need you to promise me something." "What?" "Promise me you won't be a hero. Promise me you won't throw your life away trying to save mine." Marcus couldn't promise that. They both knew it. So instead he held her close, this alien princess who had somehow become his whole world, and watched the stars slide past. 3 days later, they received the intelligence they had been waiting for. A contact in the consortium government, someone sympathetic to the peace effort, sent them encrypted data about the conspiracy's final plan. It was worse than they had imagined. The conspirators had built a weapon. Not a normal weapon, but something that used forbidden technology from the ancient wars. A quantum cascade device that would destabilize the sun of the summit location, making it go supernova. Everyone at the summit would die instantly. The conspirators would blame it on natural causes, a tragic accident, and the war would continue forever. "When?" Zilara asked, reading the data with growing horror. Marcus checked the timeline. His blood turned to ice. 6 days from now, at the exact moment of the astronomical alignment. The prophecy. They're going to fulfill it. If everyone at the summit dies, including the human delegation, that's youngest blood sacrificed. But it will doom the galaxy to eternal war, exactly like the prophecy warned. Zilara was already moving, activating communication systems. We need to warn the Council, evacuate the summit, stop the weapon. We can't, Marcus interrupted. Look at the encryption level on this data. If we reveal we have this information, our source dies. And the conspirators will just try again later. We need to stop the weapon ourselves. How? We don't even know where it is. Marcus was studying the technical data, his military mind working through possibilities. The weapon needs to be close to the sun to work, within orbital distance. And it needs constant power. That means a facility, probably hidden, probably shielded. That could be anywhere in the system. No, it has to be positioned for maximum effect. And it needs to be accessible for maintenance. He pulled up star maps, calculating vectors and orbits. There, the third moon. It's supposed to be uninhabited, but the energy readings are higher than they should be. Zilara looked at the moon on the display. Then she looked at Marcus. If we're right, if we go there and try to stop this weapon, we're walking into a trap. Probably. We could both die. Probably. And if we fail? Billions die anyway. Yes, Zilara smiled. A human expression she had learned from him. Then we better not fail. They prepared for war. The moon was called Varos III, a dead rock orbiting a gas giant. Its surface was gray dust and ancient craters. But beneath that surface, hidden behind stealth fields and false sensor readings, was a facility built for murder. Marcus led a small team. Zilara had wanted to come, but he had convinced her that she needed to be at the summit, playing her role, keeping the conspirators from suspecting anything. She had agents of her own now, loyalists from various species who believed in the peace. They would create a distraction while Marcus infiltrated the facility. The team was small. 6 soldiers, the best from different species who had proven trustworthy. They understood this was a one-way mission. The facility would be heavily defended. The chances of survival were nearly zero, but they came anyway. Because some things mattered more than survival. The assault began at midnight station time. Marcus's team used old-fashioned breaching charges to blow through the facility's outer doors. No fancy technology, just explosives and timing. Human tactics. The defenders were ready, but they were expecting a large military force. They were not expecting 6 crazy soldiers who fought like they had nothing to lose. Marcus moved through the corridors with brutal efficiency. He had studied the facility plans during the 3-day journey here. He knew where the weapon was. He just had to reach it. The facility was larger than expected. Corridors branched in all directions. Some led to barracks, others to power generators, still others to laboratories filled with equipment. Marcus did not understand. But he kept moving toward the center, toward where the quantum cascade device waited. His team fell one by one. A Krina soldier took a plasma bolt to protect Marcus's flank. A Volnari engineer sacrificed herself to hack a security door. Each death bought them seconds, meters, a little more distance dawned by the time Marcus reached the central chamber. He was alone. The quantum cascade device was beautiful in a terrible way. A sphere of twisted metal and energy fields suspended in the middle of a room that looked like the inside of a star. Readouts covered the walls, showing power levels climbing toward critical. The countdown had already started. 12 minutes until activation. 12 minutes until the summit sun exploded. Marcus ran to the control panel. His training in demolitions kicked in. He could see how the device worked, could see the feedback loops and power conduits. And he could see the problem. There was no way to stop it remotely. The safeties had been removed. The only way to prevent detonation was to manually overload the power core from inside the reactor chamber itself. Inside the reactor chamber, which was already flooding with radiation that would kill any living thing in seconds, Marcus's communicator crackled. Xylara's voice, tight with fear. Marcus, the summit delegation just felt tremors. They're evacuating. You stopped the weapon, right, Marcus? He looked at the radiation readings climbing on the screen, looked at the sealed door to the reactor chamber, looked at his hands, which would start burning in about 30 seconds once he went inside. Not yet, he said. But I will. What's the situation? Marcus could have lied. Should have lied. But they had promised honesty to each other. Manual override only. Someone has to go inside the reactor to overload the core. Silence on the line. Then, no, Marcus. There has to be another way. There isn't. I checked. I've double-checked. This is the only way. Then let me send someone else. One of my guards, one of the soldiers. They're all dead. It's just me. He heard her breath catch. Even across light years, even through communication static, he heard it. The prophecy, she whispered. Youngest blood. A human sacrifice. It was always going to be you. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just the one who's here. Marcus, please. Don't do this. Come back to the summit. We'll find another way. We'll evacuate everyone. There's no time. And you know it. If I don't stop this weapon, the summit dies. The human delegation dies. The peace dies. Everything we fought for dies. I don't care about the peace. Xylara's voice cracked, emotion breaking through in a way her people had not shown in millennia. I care about you. Marcus smiled, even though she could not see it. I know. That's why I have to do this. No, I'm giving you a direct order. As your princess, as your employer, as your... She couldn't finish. As my what? Marcus asked gently. As someone who loves you, you stubborn human fool. Don't you dare die on me. Marcus felt warmth spread through his chest. Love. She had said it. This ancient alien princess, who had been taught that emotion was weakness, had just confessed she loved him. I love you too, he said. That's why I'm doing this. Because you're going to build the future, Xylara. You're going to create the peace. And I want that to happen more than I want to live. Marcus, listen to me. You asked me to promise I wouldn't be a hero. I can't promise that. But I can promise you this. Don't waste what I'm giving you. Don't let my death be for nothing. Build that better galaxy. Make humans and Aetherians and every other species into something new. Something better than what we've been. I can't do it without you. Yes, you can. You're the strongest person I've ever met. You're going to be an amazing empress. And every time you make a decision, every time you create something good, I'll be there. Because I'll be part of what you build. The countdown hit 10 minutes. Marcus could hear alarms starting to sound at the summit. Evacuation warnings. Panic. I have to go now, he said. The reactor won't wait. Marcus, please. 5 more seconds. Just 5 more seconds. He gave her 10, 20. A full minute of silence, just listening to her breathe, memorizing the sound of her voice. I'm glad I met you, he finally said. I'm glad I got to know you. Even if it was only for a few weeks, even if it ends like this. You made my life mean something. You made mine mean something too, Xylara whispered. Goodbye, Marcus-chan. I will remember you. I swear on everything sacred to my people, I will remember you. Goodbye, Xylara. He ended the communication before she could say anything else. If he heard her voice again, he might not have the strength to do what needed to be done. Marcus opened the reactor, Chamber door. The radiation hit him like a physical force. Every cell in his body started screaming warnings. His implants shut down immediately. His vision blurred, but he could still see the control panel inside, could still see the manual override. He walked forward. Each step was agony. His skin was already starting to burn. His lungs felt like they were full of acid, but he kept walking. He reached the panel. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely work the controls. But he had practiced this 1,000 times in his mind. He knew which sequence to enter, which safeties to override. The core began to collapse. The cascade effect reversed, eating itself from the inside. The weapon was dying. The summit was saved. Marcus slumped against the wall. He could not feel his legs anymore. Could barely see. But through the reactor chamber window, he could see the main room. And in that room, on one of the screens, he could see a live feed from the summit dot. He could see Zilara. She was standing at the window of the summit hall, looking up at the sky. Her crystalline face was streaked with something Marcus had never seen before. Liquid running down her cheeks. Tears. Aetherians did not cry. They had not cried in 3,000 years. But she was crying now. Marcus raised his hand to the window, pressing it against the reinforced glass. He imagined her there, on the other side, mirroring the gesture like she had done once before, when he had saved her life and started this whole impossible journey. "Create the future," he whispered. His voice did not work anymore, but he said it anyway. "Create the future I won't see." The light got brighter. Marcus closed his eyes. He thought about Earth, about family, about the stars. He thought about Zilara's smile when he made her laugh. He thought about the galaxy they had glimpsed together, the one where humans and aliens built something beautiful. It was a good last thought. The reactor chamber filled with light. The weapon died. And Marcus Chen, human soldier, protector of an alien princess, became a myth. Across the galaxy, on every world of the consortium, billions of people felt something shift. Not physically, nothing measurable by instruments. But in that moment, when a human soldier chose death over letting others die, when he gave everything for people who were not even his species, something changed in the collective consciousness of the galaxy. The prophecy was fulfilled, and the age of convergence began. The summit hall was silent when they received confirmation that the weapon was destroyed. Silent when they learned who had destroyed it. Silent when they realized what it had cost. Zilara stood at the window, tears still streaming down her crystalline face. Around her, delegates from 12 species watched in shock. Aetherians did not cry. Everyone knew this. It was a fact as certain as gravity, but she was crying. And she could not stop. The human ambassador, a woman named Sarah Chen, Marcus's sister, approached quietly. She had learned of her brother's death the same moment everyone else had. But she stood straight, her face calm, even though her eyes were red. "Your Highness," Sarah said softly, "my brother would want you to finish this. He would want you to sign the peace." Zilara turned to look at her. "How can you be so calm? Your brother just died. Because he chose it. Because it mattered. And because if I fall apart now, he'll have died for nothing." Sarah's voice cracked slightly, but she kept control. "Sign the peace, Your Highness. Make his sacrifice mean something." The peace treaty was signed that day. Not just between the Aetherian Empire and the Krynith Dominion, but between all 12 species of the consortium. It was bigger than anyone had planned, more comprehensive than the original proposal. Because Marcus's death had shown them something they had forgotten, that life had meaning beyond power and politics. One human had given everything for people he barely knew, for aliens who had looked down on his species. And he had done it without hesitation, without asking for anything in return. If a human could do that, what did it say about the rest of them? The conspirators were exposed within days. The species who had planned the weapon were removed from the Council of Luminaries. But they were not executed. Solara, in her first act as the leader of the Peace Coalition, showed them mercy. Because mercy was what Marcus had taught her. That strength could be gentle. That power could be kind. She called it the Chun Doctrine. Within a month, it spread across the consortium. Not as a law, but as a philosophy. The idea that individual choice mattered. That sacrifice for others was the highest form of consciousness. That emotion was not weakness, but the very thing that made life worth living. Aetherian scholars began researching their own history, looking at what they had lost when they eliminated emotion. They found poetry written 5,000 years ago, before the change. Music that had been silent for millennia. Art that showed feelings they had forgotten how to name. Slowly, carefully, Aetherians began to remember how to feel. Other species noticed. The change rippled outward. Wars that had seemed inevitable suddenly found peaceful solutions. Resources were shared instead of hoarded. New alliances formed not from mutual fear, but from genuine cooperation. The galaxy was changing. And at the center of that change was Princess Zilara, who became Empress Zilara in a coronation ceremony attended by leaders from all 12 species. But she never married. Never took a consort. When asked why, she would simply say that she had already given her heart to someone, and it would be dishonest to pretend otherwise. On the anniversary of Marcus's death, 1 year later, Concordia Prime unveiled a memorial. It stood in the center of the station, where the first assassination attempt had happened. Where Marcus had first saved Zilara's life, the statue showed Marcus in his uniform, standing at attention, his face calm and determined. The artist, a Krynith, who had never met Marcus but felt compelled to create the piece, had somehow captured something essential about him. The way he had looked at the world with both wariness and hope. The inscription was in all 12 consortium languages. Captain Marcus Chun. He gave tomorrow by sacrificing his today. Solara attended the ceremony alone. She placed a white rose, grown in earth soil brought specially for the occasion, at the statue's base. Then she stood there for an hour, just looking at the stone face that did not quite capture the warmth of his smile. "I did what you asked," she said quietly, knowing he could not hear, saying it anyway. "I built the future, but I wish you were here to see it." Sarah Chun found her there. Marcus's sister had taken his place as humanity's primary representative to the consortium. She was good at it, diplomatic where Marcus had been blunt, patient where he had been impulsive. But she had his courage, his willingness to stand up for what was right. "He'd be proud of you," Sarah said, looking at the memorial. "Of what you've accomplished. Would he?" Zilara touched the statue's hand. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing this for the right reasons. Am I building peace because it's right, or because it's what he wanted? Does it matter?" "Yes," Sarah smiled slightly. "Marcus used to say that humans were good at lying to themselves. That we could convince ourselves of anything if we tried hard enough. But you know what? I think the lies we tell ourselves can sometimes become true. You might have started this because you loved my brother. But look at what you've created. Look at what's happening across the galaxy. That's not love. That's leadership. That's vision." Zilara was quiet for a moment. "Then, do you hate me? For letting him die? He was protecting me when it happened. If I had never met him, he'd probably have died in some other pointless battle," Sarah interrupted. "Fighting for people who didn't appreciate it. At least this way, his death meant something. At least this way, he changed the galaxy." She paused. "And for what it's worth, I think he loved you. I think dying for you made him happy. That's a very human thing to say. Well, we're a very human species." 5 years passed. Then 10. Then 20. The peace held. More than held, it flourished. The consortium expanded, welcoming new species with open arms. Technology was shared freely. Scientific advances came faster as species worked together instead of competing. Art and culture blended, creating new forms of expression that no single species could have imagined alone. Humanity was no longer probationary. They had full membership, a permanent seat on the Council of Luminaries. And they were respected not for their technology or their military might, but for their spirit. For that uniquely human combination of stubbornness and hope that had driven Marcus to sacrifice himself. Zilara guided it all. She was the architect of the new age, the empress who united rather than conquered. But she never forgot where it came from. Every decision she made, she asked herself, what would Marcus think? Would this be worth what he paid? On the 20th anniversary of his death, something unexpected happened. The statue on Concordia Prime began to glow at first. People thought it was a malfunction. But the glow was coming from inside the stone itself, pulsing in patterns that looked almost alive. Scientists rushed to study it. They found energy readings that should not exist, quantum fluctuations that defied explanation. An ancient Etherian scholar, one who had spent decades studying the convergence prophecy, offered a theory. The prophecy spoke of a sacrifice creating a resonance in reality. What if Marcus's choice did more than just inspire people? What if it actually changed something fundamental about how the universe works? No one could prove it. The readings were too subtle, too strange to measure properly. But people began to notice patterns. Children born after the convergence seemed more empathetic, more able to understand emotions across species boundaries. Artists from different species could collaborate in ways that had been impossible before. Scientists made breakthroughs by combining intuition with logic, feeling with reason. It was as if Marcus's sacrifice had planted a seed in the collective consciousness of the galaxy. And it was finally beginning to bloom. Zilara, now old by human standards though still young for an Etherian, stood before the glowing statue on that 20th anniversary. Around her were gathered thousands of people. Humans, Etherians, Krinoth, Volnari, and species that had not even been part of the consortium when Marcus died. 20 years ago, she said. Her voice amplified across the station. A human soldier made a choice. He chose to die so that others could live. He chose love over fear. He chose hope over despair. And in doing so, he showed us what we could become. She gestured to the crowd, to the mixing of species that would have been unthinkable before. Look at what we've built. Look at what we are. We are no longer 12 species tolerating each other's existence. We are becoming something new, something that honors the sacrifice that made this possible. A young human child, no more than 6 years old, approached the statue. She was holding a white rose, like the one Zilara brought every year. She placed it carefully next to the dozens of others that already lay there. My teacher told me about Captain Chen, the little girl said, looking up at Zilara. She said he was a hero. He was, Zilara agreed. Did you know him? Yes, I knew him very well. What was he like? Zilara knelt down to the child's level. He was brave. He was kind. He was sometimes very stubborn. And he believed that people could be better than they thought they could be. Was he right? Zilara looked around at the crowd, at humans and aliens standing together, celebrating not a war memorial but a memorial to peace, at children of different species playing together without fear or suspicion, at the future Marcus had died to create. Yes, she said softly. He was right. The ceremony ended. The crowds dispersed. But Zilara stayed, as she always did, sitting beside the statue as the station's artificial night fell. I'm old now, Marcus, she said to the stone. Not by my people's standards, but I feel old, tired.